A cool oasis waits in the middle of a blistering desert. This is the incredible legacy of ancient desert civilizations, who mastered the art of passive cooling long before modern technology. They built structures that remained refreshingly comfortable even as temperatures soared past 120 degrees Fahrenheit. By the end of this exploration, you will understand the brilliant scientific principles that made these ancient climate control systems work. How did they trap cool air without any moving parts? What hidden engineering lies within simple walls of earth and stone? We are going to uncover the secrets behind architectural marvels, from wind-catching towers to subterranean cities, all designed in perfect harmony with nature. Their timeless wisdom holds urgent lessons for our own era of climate challenges and energy concerns. What do you think we have forgotten about living in balance with our environment? These principles were not written into the landscape itself. To truly appreciate the genius of a wind-catching tower or an underground chamber, we need to understand the simple, elegant physics they were built upon. This is the language of passive cooling, a way of speaking with the environment using only 3 fundamental words. The first is convection, the natural movement of air. Warm air is lighter, so it always wants to rise. Cool air is heavier, so it sinks. This simple truth is the engine for every ancient ventilation system, creating a gentle, continuous breeze without a single fan. The second word is conduction. This is how heat travels through a solid material, like the sun's warmth slowly seeping through a thick mud brick wall. And the third is radiation, the way all objects, including the walls of a building and the people inside it, constantly emit and absorb heat energy. What ancient builders realized is that these 3 forces are always at play. Their brilliance was in designing structures that choreographed them. They would position a building to block radiant heat from the sun, use thick walls of earth with high thermal mass to slowly absorb heat through conduction during the day and release it at night, and design clever openings to harness convection, letting hot air escape out the top while pulling cool air in from below. It was a symphony of physics conducted with stone and soil. Every system we are about to explore, from the Persian windcatchers to the Egyptian malkafs, is simply a variation on this timeless theme, a masterful application of nature's own rulebook. Rising from the flat rooftops of ancient Persian cities, these towers stood like silent sentinels against the heat. They are called badgirs or windcatchers, and they represent humanity's first true architectural answer to a desert sky. To understand their genius, you must first forget everything about modern machines. There is no compressor, no refrigerant, no electricity. The only power source is the wind itself and the subtle intelligence of a design that has been refined over centuries. A badgir is essentially a tall, capped tower, its top open to the prevailing breeze. But the magic is not in simply catching wind. It is in what happens next. The tower face is split by internal partitions, creating multiple vertical shafts. One shaft faces directly into the wind, catching it and forcing it downward. The other shafts, sheltered from the direct flow, act as exhaust channels. As the fresh, cooler air is pushed down into the living quarters below, it displaces the warm, stale air inside. That warm air naturally rises, finding its way up through the exhaust shafts and out the top of the tower. This creates a continuous, gentle circulation, a self-sustaining cycle of renewal that could lower indoor temperatures by a staggering 20 degrees or more. But the architects did not stop there. Often, the incoming air would be directed over a small pool of water or through a damp cloth at the base of the shaft. This introduced evaporation into the equation. chilling the air further as the water molecules absorbed heat to turn into vapor. In the intense, dry heat of the Iranian plateau, this combination of convective airflow and evaporative cooling was transformative. Cities like Yazd, known as the city of windcatchers, became sprawling proofs of concept, their skylines etched with these elegant towers. Each one was a careful study, its orientation precisely calculated to capture the specific wind patterns of its location, its height and internal geometry fine-tuned through generations of lived experience. This was not just building, it was a profound dialogue with the atmosphere, a way of writing comfort into the very bones of a home using nothing but stone, clay, and an intimate knowledge of the invisible currents above. If the windcatcher shows us how to harness the sky, what ancient secret lies in turning away from the sun and digging deep into the earth? While the windcatcher reached for the sky, another brilliant design turned inward, creating a world of cool serenity behind unassuming walls. This is the ancient Courtyard house, a masterpiece of microclimate engineering found across the Middle East and North Africa. From the outside, these homes often present a blank, windowless facade to the harsh sun and dusty winds. But step through the single, heavy door and you enter another realm entirely. The heart of the home is not a living room, but an open-air courtyard, a private oasis bathed in dappled light and palpable calm. You feel the temperature drop immediately, a sensation that is not an illusion but the result of several intertwined physical principles working in perfect concert. The most immediate relief comes from shade. The courtyard is surrounded by high walls and often shaded by overhanging galleries or vines, creating a deep pool of shadow that shields the interior from direct solar radiation throughout the hottest parts of the day. But the true genius lies in the materials themselves. Those thick, massive walls and the courtyard floor are not made from modern, lightweight materials. They are constructed from adobe, rammed earth, or stone, substances with what engineers call high thermal mass. Think of thermal mass as a kind of architectural sponge for heat. These dense materials absorb thermal energy incredibly slowly. Throughout the long, scorching afternoon, the sun beats down on the roof and the upper portions of the walls. Instead of letting that heat rush inside, the thick earth and stone soak it up, holding it within their very structure. This means the interior spaces lag far behind the outdoor temperature, remaining cool long after the world outside has become an oven. Then, as night falls and the desert air grows chilly, the process reverses. The stored heat within the walls begins to gently radiate back into the cooler courtyard and the rooms surrounding it, taking the edge off the nighttime cold and maintaining a remarkably stable, comfortable environment for 24 hours. This daily cycle of absorption and release turns the entire structure into a thermal battery, smoothing out the extreme peaks and valleys of the desert climate. The courtyard also acts as the lungs of the home. As the sun heats the air above the rooftop and the upper walls, that warm air naturally rises. This creates a subtle suction effect, pulling the cooler, denser air from the shaded courtyard up and through the surrounding rooms. Doors and windows are strategically aligned to guide this flow, resulting in a constant, gentle breeze that ventilates every corner without a single watt of electricity. The courtyard house is more than just a building, it is a self-regulating ecosystem. It provides shade, stores coolness, creates airflow, and often centers around a small fountain or basin, adding evaporative cooling to the mix. It represents a philosophy of living in respectful dialogue with a demanding environment, using geometry, mass, and shadow to carve out a haven of comfort. This inward-looking design asks a profound question. If we can create such stability above ground, what profound coolness might we find by going below it? But the most profound coolness was not found by looking up or building walls. It was discovered by listening to the quiet whisper of water deep underground. Across the vast, sun-baked plains of ancient Persia, a hidden network of veins pulsed with life, an engineering marvel known as the qanat. To call it merely a water channel is to miss its genius entirely. This was a subterranean aqueduct, a lifeline carved by hand through rock and soil over distances that could stretch for dozens of miles. Its construction was an act of profound faith and precision. Teams of skilled workers, known as muqannis, would dig a series of vertical shafts down to the water table at the base of a mountain. Then, from the destination point in the arid valley, they would begin tunneling backward, following a meticulously calculated, gentle slope to meet the mother well. The result was a gravity-fed stream that flowed silently in the dark, protected from the evaporating heat of the desert sun. This alone was a triumph of survival, bringing water to fields and cities. But the ancient Persians saw a second, equally vital resource in that dark, flowing tunnel: coolness itself. The earth is a remarkable insulator. Just a few feet below the surface, the temperature remains stable and mild, shielded from the dramatic swings of the air above. The qanat, therefore, was not just a pipe, it was a natural refrigerator. Its tunnels maintained a constant, cool temperature year-round, and the flowing water added moisture to the air within them. This cool, damp air became a powerful tool for climate control. Buildings, especially the homes of the wealthy or public structures like caravanserais, were often constructed directly above or immediately adjacent to a qanat channel. They would incorporate clever ventilation shafts that connected the living spaces to the tunnel below. Like drawing a breath from a deep, cool cave, the structure would pull this naturally conditioned air upward, allowing it to displace the warmer air inside. The effect could lower temperatures in basement rooms and lower floors dramatically, creating habitable spaces that felt impossibly serene during the peak of summer. This integration reached its most astonishing form in the Yakhchāl, or Ice House. Even in the blistering heat of an Iranian summer, these ingenious domed structures could produce and store ice. How was this possible? The answer lies in the perfect marriage of qanat water and nocturnal radiation. On clear, cold winter nights, shallow basins adjacent to the Yakhchāl would be filled with qanat water. The still, dry desert air and the lack of cloud cover allowed for rapid radiative cooling. The water would freeze into thin sheets of ice. Workers would then harvest this ice, break it up, and transport it down into the deep, insulated storage pit of the Yakhchāl, which was often itself cooled by a qanat channel running beneath it. The thick, domed structure, made from a special mortar called saruj that was highly resistant to heat transfer, acted like a giant thermos, keeping the ice from melting for months. By summer, a community could have access to ice for preserving food, cooling drinks, or even making early forms of frozen desserts. The qanat system represents the pinnacle of holistic ancient engineering. It was not a single solution for a single problem. It was a multi-purpose artery that provided water for drinking and agriculture, generated hydraulic power for mills, created a cool microclimate for architecture, and enabled food preservation. Every element of the desert environment was observed, understood, and woven into a seamless web of survival. This deep, systemic thinking challenges our modern, compartmentalized approach. We build separate systems for water, power, and cooling, often working against nature. They built one elegant system that worked in concert with it, so we have seen how they mastered the air, the earth, and the water beneath it. But what happened when an entire civilization decided to escape the sun, not by building up or digging down, but by carving a complete world into the living rock itself? The true power of these ancient structures was not just in their shape, but in the very substance from which they were made. Adobe, stone, and rammed earth were not merely convenient, they were the cornerstone of a deliberate and sophisticated material science. For desert civilizations, every handful of clay and every block of stone was selected, and mixed with an intimate understanding of how it would behave under the relentless sun. Take Adobe, that humble mixture of earth, clay, straw, and water. Its genius lies in two key properties. The first is its incredible thermal mass. Think of a dense, heavy brick sitting in the sun. It does not heat up quickly. Instead, it soaks up thermal energy slowly and steadily, acting like a massive sponge for heat. A wall made of thick adobe will absorb the sun's punishing rays throughout the day, but it delays transferring that heat to the interior space for many, many hours. The peak warmth from the afternoon sun might only reach the inside of the home well after sunset, when the cooler night air is already arriving to balance it out. This time lag is everything. It flattens the temperature curve, turning a day of extreme heat into a night of gentle, radiant warmth. The second property is its porosity. Adobe bricks are filled with tiny air pockets. If the material becomes slightly damp, perhaps from a nearby courtyard fountain or even the humidity in the air, a magical process begins. Water from the damp brick slowly evaporates into the dry desert air. Evaporation requires energy, and it draws that heat energy directly from the brick itself and from the air moving past it. This actively cools the material, creating a kind of natural, sweat-based air conditioning for the entire wall. Similarly, thick mud bricks and locally quarried stone provided exceptional insulation, their dense structures creating a formidable barrier against conductive heat. But the material science did not stop at thickness or composition. Color was a calculated tool. You will often see the exteriors of ancient desert homes painted with light-colored plasters, washes of white or pale ochre. This was a deliberate choice to reflect solar radiation, bouncing a significant portion of the sun's energy away before it could ever be absorbed. Conversely, darker, heat-absorbing surfaces might be used strategically in interior courtyards or on certain walls to capture and retain warmth during the cold desert nights. This mastery of local, sustainable materials meant that every building was an active participant in temperature regulation. It was not a static box fighting the environment. It was a dynamic system, breathing and responding with the rhythms of the day. The structure itself became a partner in comfort, its very walls working silently to create a haven. This profound relationship with material raises a final, crucial point. We have marveled at the towers, the courtyards, the tunnels, and the walls. But what was the philosophy that bound all these brilliant innovations together? What deeper understanding of the world made this harmonious engineering possible? The greatest cooling system ever built was not a single structure, but an entire city. Walk through the ancient heart of a desert settlement, and you are not just moving through streets, you are navigating a meticulously engineered climate machine. The most striking feature is the absence of wide, open avenues. Instead, you find yourself in a labyrinth of shadow, a network of alleyways so narrow that sunlight only touches the ground for a brief moment each day. This was not a result of haphazard growth or a lack of space. It was a deliberate, brilliant strategy for communal survival. By packing buildings closely together and making the streets incredibly tight, ancient planners created a permanent canopy of shade. The tall, sun-baked walls of the homes themselves became the roofing for these cool, subterranean-like passages below. This compact urban design had a second, powerful benefit. It dramatically reduced the total surface area of the city exposed to the punishing sun. Think of it like a group of people huddling together for warmth in the cold, but in reverse. A sprawling city presents a vast, flat target to solar radiation, soaking up heat across every rooftop and wall. But a dense, vertical city presents a smaller collective profile, with structures shading each other's sides and their shared streets. This minimized the overall heat gain for the entire community, making the urban core significantly cooler than the open desert just beyond its walls. Then there is the wind. Even the faintest desert breeze becomes a tangible force within these narrow urban canyons. This is due to a principle called the Venturi effect. When a fluid, like air, is forced through a constricted space, its speed increases. So a gentle wind flowing over the rooftops is funneled and accelerated as it dips down into the tight channels between buildings. What might be a whisper above becomes a perceptible, cooling draft at street level, constantly flushing the alleys and ventilating the homes that line them. You can witness this masterful urban planning in places like the ancient city of Shibam in Yemen, often called the Manhattan of the desert, with its towering mud brick skyscrapers rising from a dense, shaded base. Or in the historic medinas of Morocco, where the covered souks remain refreshingly cool while the modern plaza outside shimmers with heat. This was climate control at the scale of society, a recognition that true comfort and sustainability could not be achieved by one house alone, but only through a collective architectural vision. Every narrow street was a shared artery of coolness, and every shaded courtyard contributed to a larger communal oasis. This holistic thinking challenges our modern preference for isolated, standalone buildings. It asks us a profound question. In our quest for personal space and sprawling layouts, have we forgotten how to build communities that are naturally comfortable for everyone? This elegant latticework is far more than decorative art. Carved from wood and extending from windows across the Middle East, the Mashrabiya is a precise instrument of environmental control. Its intricate geometric patterns are a mathematical solution written in shadow and light. Each small opening is carefully calculated, not by chance, but to achieve a perfect balance. The primary function is solar screening. The dense lattice acts like a sophisticated filter for sunlight. It shatters the harsh, direct beams of the desert sun into 1,000 tiny, harmless points. This transforms the blinding, heat-carrying glare into a soft, diffused glow that illuminates a room without overheating it. The effect is profound, reducing solar heat gain dramatically while still allowing residents to see out and enjoy natural daylight. But the Mashrabiya's genius is threefold. Its second function is ventilation. By projecting out from the wall of a building, the screened box reaches beyond the layer of still, hot air that clings to the exterior surface. It taps into the higher, cooler breezes that flow above the street level. These captured breezes are then funneled through the latticework and directed inward. The small openings accelerate the air slightly, creating a pleasant, focused draft that flows directly into the living space. Then comes the third, and perhaps most clever, layer of cooling. The space inside the projecting box behind the wooden screen was often used as a shelf. Here, families would place porous clay jars filled with drinking water. As the outside air, already somewhat cooled by passing through the shade of the lattice, moves across the damp surface of these jars, a final transformation occurs. Water evaporates from the clay, and that evaporation draws heat energy from the air itself. The breeze entering the room is now noticeably cooler and carries a slight, refreshing humidity, a precious commodity in the dry desert air. In one beautiful, unified element, the Mashrabiya solves multiple problems. It provides privacy for those inside while allowing them to observe the street, a vital social function. It blocks heat and glare, it captures and directs cool breezes, and it integrates evaporative cooling, all without a single moving part or any energy input beyond the wind and the natural properties of water and clay. It represents a pinnacle of integrated design where art, social need, and hard physics are woven together seamlessly. This multifunctional elegance points to a deeper truth behind all these ancient marvels. They were not just clever tricks, but expressions of a coherent worldview, a philosophy of living that understood humanity not as separate from nature, but as a thoughtful participant within it. The secret to turning a desert breeze into a chilled breath lies in a simple, silent transformation happening all around us. It is the science of evaporative cooling, a principle so elegant that ancient engineers could wield it with nothing more than clay, water, and a profound understanding of the air itself. At its heart is a beautiful piece of physics. When water shifts from a liquid to a vapor, it requires energy. It draws that heat energy directly from its immediate surroundings. So, when a breeze passes over a damp surface, the water molecules absorb thermal energy to escape into the air, and that process actively cools both the surface and the air flowing past it. This is not a minor effect. The amount of heat absorbed, called the latent heat of vaporization, is remarkably high. Harnessing this natural air conditioning became a cornerstone of comfort in the world's driest places. The moist clay jars in a Mashrabiya were just the beginning. Across the Indian subcontinent and the Middle East, architects perfected the jolly, a perforated stone or lattice screen. These screens, often intricately carved, served multiple purposes. They provided privacy and diffused light, but when their surfaces were kept slightly damp, either by manual splashing or through capillary action from a hidden water source, they transformed. As the hot, dry wind pushed through the countless small openings, it would pass over the cool, wet stone. Evaporation would instantly chill the air, delivering a stream of refreshed, slightly humidified breeze into the interior rooms of a home or palace. This application was scaled up to an art form in grand structures. In some royal complexes, narrow channels of water were ingeniously routed through interior walls or along floors. These qanats for air did not just carry water, they created cool microclimates as the water within them slowly evaporated into the surrounding stone and air. Courtyards centered around a small, bubbling fountain were not merely decorative. That fountain was a climate control device. The constant agitation of the water increased its surface area, accelerating evaporation and filling the shaded courtyard with a perceptibly cooler, more pleasant atmosphere. A stunning example of this philosophy, though in a semi-arid region, is Spain's Alhambra Palace. Here, the Nasrid architects mastered the marriage of water and architecture. Courtyards like the Court of the Lions feature central fountains and delicate channels that trace through the pavements. In the dry heat of a Spanish summer, these water features actively cool the air through evaporation, while also adding a touch of precious humidity, making the stone arcades feel like natural sanctuaries. This ancient mastery of a fundamental physical process asks us to look at water differently. It was not just a resource for drinking or irrigation, it was a building material for the very air they breathe. They understood that in an arid environment, the act of water disappearing into the sky was not a loss, but a direct and powerful path to comfort. Look up inside a grand mosque or an ancient palace, and you see more than a beautiful ceiling. That soaring dome above you is a silent engine for coolness. In the relentless heat of the desert, flat roofs are a liability. They absorb the sun's energy like a dark stone and radiate it downward, turning an upper room into an oven. The dome, however, is a masterclass in thermal geometry. Its curved shape presents a much larger surface area to the sky than a flat slab covering the same floor space. This expansive surface allows heat to dissipate more efficiently, radiating back into the cooler night air. But the true brilliance is in how the dome manages the air itself. Warm air, as we know, always rises. In a large, open chamber, that hot air would simply pool at the top, creating a stifling, stagnant layer. The dome does not trap it. Instead, it guides it. Architects would design these structures with a critical feature, a small, strategic opening at the very apex, the highest point. This is the key. As the warm air inside naturally floats upward, it gathers in the crown of the dome. That opening at the top acts like a release valve, allowing the hottest air to continuously stream out into the atmosphere. But nature abhors a vacuum. As that warm air exits, it creates a gentle suction, pulling in replacement air from below. This is where a second set of openings comes into play, often placed low in the walls or at the dome's base. These inlets draw in cooler air from shaded courtyards or from the lower, cooler strata of the building itself. The result is a constant, passive airflow, a convection current engineered entirely by shape. This stack effect transforms the entire volume under the dome into a breathing space, perpetually flushed and refreshed without a whisper of sound. The same intelligent logic applies to the graceful arches that support these buildings. Arches allow for vast, column-free interiors with exceptionally high ceilings. This vertical space is not just for grandeur, it is for climate stratification. It creates a thermal gradient. The hottest air rises high above, accumulating in the lofty upper vaults, far removed from where people live, work, and pray. The occupants exist in the lower, cooler stratum, a comfortable zone separated from the heat reservoir above by nothing but the simple, brilliant physics of rising air. You can witness this in action in places like the Great Mosque of Cordoba or the stunning domes of Isfahan. The air beneath them feels still and serene, yet it is constantly in motion, a silent exchange between earth and sky choreographed by stone. This architectural wisdom asks us to reconsider our own spaces. How much of our modern cooling effort is spent fighting the natural tendency of hot air to rise, rather than designing spaces that help it simply leave? Sometimes the most radical design is to build in reverse. In the stark, sun-bleached landscape of southern Tunisia, the Berber people did not construct homes that reached for the sky. Instead, they performed a kind of architectural subtraction, carving their dwellings directly down into the soft, yielding rock of the earth. The result is the astonishing Troglodyte village of Matmata, a place where the line between building and landscape dissolves completely. From the surface, you might see only a series of large, circular pits, like craters scattered across the ground. But descend into one of these openings, and you enter a hidden world of profound comfort and ingenious design. This is not a dark, cramped cave. It is a sunken courtyard, a private, open-air plaza excavated perhaps 30 feet down, with its walls lined with doorways leading to spacious, vaulted rooms tunneled even deeper into the surrounding earth. The genius of this architecture lies in its utter simplicity and its flawless logic. By retreating into the ground, the Berber builders tapped into the Earth's most reliable property, its phenomenal thermal mass. Just a few feet below the surface, the temperature of the soil remains almost constant, insulated from the dramatic swings of the air above. While the desert surface might sear at 120 degrees, the temperature in these subterranean rooms holds steady at a cool, comfortable 70. The earth itself becomes a massive, natural insulator, its thick walls absorbing any external heat with glacial slowness. The central pit, that sunken courtyard, is the brilliant heart of the system. It functions as a communal living room, a kitchen, and a sophisticated climate device all in one. Open to the sky, it captures sunlight for illumination and warmth during the cooler months. But during the fierce heat of summer, its depth creates a deep well of shade. More importantly, it acts as a perfect passive air handler. Any breeze that whispers across the desert plateau is caught by the rim of the pit and funneled downward into the cool depths of the courtyard. This air, already slightly cooled by its descent into the shaded earth, is then drawn into the surrounding rooms through their doorways. As the air inside those rooms warms from occupancy or cooking, it rises, flows back out into the courtyard, and drifts up and out of the pit, creating a gentle, continuous circulation that keeps the entire complex fresh and ventilated. This architecture represents a philosophy of profound harmony. Instead of fighting the environment with walls and towers, the Berber people invited it in, using the earth not as an obstacle, but as a protective embrace. They turned the very challenge of the desert, its extreme heat, into the core of their solution by using the ground as a buffer. The Matmata dwellings are a powerful testament to human adaptability. showing that comfort is not always about what we add to a landscape, but sometimes about what we respectfully remove from it. They ask us to reconsider our relationship with shelter itself. In our modern world of sealed boxes and mechanical systems, have we forgotten the quiet, steady comfort that the living earth can provide? The sun was their compass, and its path across the sky was the first line in their architectural blueprint. Ancient builders possessed a deep, observational knowledge of solar geometry, a mastery of light and shadow that turned every structure into a precise instrument for living. They understood that the sun does not follow the same arc every day. In summer, it climbs high and rides a long, punishing arc across the sky. In winter, it hangs low, tracing a shorter, gentler path. Their genius was in designing buildings that could respond to this seasonal dialogue without a single moving part. The foundational rule was orientation. If you look at the layout of ancient desert settlements, you will see a clear pattern. The long walls of buildings consistently run north to south. Why this specific alignment? It is a brilliant act of minimization. The most punishing solar exposure does not come from the high noon sun directly overhead, which is easier to block with a simple roof. The real challenge comes from the low-angle sun of early morning and late afternoon, whose rays strike walls almost horizontally, pouring heat into the structure for hours. By orienting the long walls north-south, architects presented the smallest possible east and west-facing surfaces to this daily assault. The broad sides of the building faced the softer northern light or the shaded southern exposure, dramatically reducing the solar gain during the hottest parts of the day. But orientation was just the beginning. Every opening was a calculated decision. Windows on the sun-blasted eastern and western walls were kept small and few, mere slits for ventilation. Meanwhile, the cooler northern and shaded southern facades might feature larger openings to welcome in reflected light and capture prevailing breezes. Then came the art of the shadow. Builders designed permanent features to act as seasonal sunshades. Deep roof overhangs, shaded galleries, and even the strategic placement of a neighboring building were all tools in this craft. The goal was to cast a blanket of shadow over walls and windows precisely when the sun was at its most intense. A well-designed overhang might block the high summer sun completely, while allowing the lower, welcome winter sun to slide beneath it and warm the interior. This was solar geometry in its purest form, a three-dimensional puzzle solved with mud brick and intuition. They did not have software to model sun paths. They had generations of watching where light fell at the solstice, of feeling which room was too hot in September and perfectly comfortable in December. This intimate knowledge allowed them to bake seasonal responsiveness into the very fabric of their homes. The structure itself became a calendar and a thermostat, leaning into the winter sun for warmth and ducking away from the summer blaze for coolness. It was a long-term conversation with the sky, a way of building that acknowledged time itself as a partner in design. That silent conversation with the sun was matched by an equally profound dialogue with time itself. Desert days are a story of extremes, a relentless pendulum swing between searing afternoons and surprisingly cold nights. This daily rhythm, the diurnal cycle, was not a problem to be solved, but a powerful force to be harnessed. Ancient builders became masters of a principle called thermal lag, a way of bending time to create comfort. Think of a massive stone sitting in a campfire. It takes a long while to grow hot, and once removed, it stays warm for hours after the flames have died. This slow response to temperature change is thermal lag, and it was the secret ingredient in every thick adobe wall and rammed earth structure. A wall built from these dense, heavy materials acts like a thermal battery with a very slow charge and discharge rate. When the brutal afternoon sun beats against it, the outer surface heats up rapidly. But that heat does not rush straight through to the interior living space. Instead, it slowly soaks inward, traveling through the thick mass of the wall at a deliberate, almost leisurely pace. By the time that wave of captured heat finally reaches the inner surface of the wall, many hours have passed, the sun has set, and the outside air has grown cool. Now, instead of radiating unwanted warmth into a hot room, the wall releases its stored heat into a space that is already beginning to chill. This release can actually help take the edge off the nighttime cold. Then the process reverses. Throughout the cool night, the wall steadily sheds its stored energy, cooling down from the inside out. When the sun rises again the next morning, the wall's inner surface remains cool, acting as a shield against the new day's heat. It might be noon outside before the warmth from the morning sun finally penetrates to the interior, effectively giving residents a several-hour head start on comfort. This was diurnal cycle exploitation in its purest form. The building itself became a temporal buffer, smoothing out the jagged peaks and valleys of the desert temperature graph. Architects amplified this effect with intelligent ventilation. They would seal up a home during the hottest part of the day, letting the thick walls do their slow, steady work of blocking heat. Then, as evening fell and the outside air cooled, they would throw open windows and vents. The cool night air would flood in, flushing out any residual warmth and actively recharging the walls with coolness, preparing the battery for another day. This was not a fight against the environment, but a graceful dance with its natural rhythm. They understood that comfort was not a single, constant state, but a dynamic balance achieved across the full 24-hour cycle. Their buildings were not just shelters in space but anchors in time, designed to lag behind the harshness of the day and linger in the gentle cool of the night. Descending into a stepwell is like walking into the heart of a cool stone giant. Across the arid plains of India, in regions like Gujarat and Rajasthan, ancient communities did not just dig for water, they built breathtaking inverted palaces around it. These are the Baolis or stepwells, monumental feats of engineering that transformed a simple necessity into a sanctuary of social life and profound climate control. While not located in a classic sandy desert, these landscapes face a similar adversary: relentless heat and seasonal drought. The stepwell was the ingenious answer, a structure that served three vital purposes in one elegant form. It was a reliable water source, a spectacular public space, and perhaps most astonishingly, a naturally air-conditioned refuge from the sweltering world above. The architectural principle is a masterpiece of reverse design. Instead of building up, the builders carved down, sometimes descending 50 feet or more into the earth. They created a vast, trench-like courtyard lined with symmetrical, stepped terraces on all sides, leading down to the water table at the very bottom. This deep excavation into the ground was the key to its cooling magic. The earth, as we have seen, maintains a stable, cool temperature just a few feet below the surface. By digging so deep, the builders accessed a massive volume of this cool earth, whose walls now formed the sides of the entire structure. Meanwhile, the water reservoir at the base added another powerful cooling element through constant, gentle evaporation in the sheltered shade. The result was a dramatic thermal gradient. At the surface, the air could be a blistering 110 degrees, but with each step downward, the temperature would drop noticeably. By the time you reached the water's edge, it could be a full 20 degrees cooler or more. This temperature difference powered a passive ventilation system. The hot, lighter air at the surface would naturally sink as it cooled upon contact with the massive, chilled stone walls and the evaporating water below. This created a continuous, gentle downdraft of cool air that flowed down the step terraces, while the slightly warmer, moist air would slowly rise and dissipate. The entire stepped canyon became a natural convection cell, a river of coolness flowing steadily downward. But the true genius of the stepwell was in how it centered community life around this coolness. The step terraces were not merely stairs, they were galleries, seating areas, and shaded promenades. During the peak heat of summer, the Baoli became the social and cultural heart of a village or town. People would gather on its many levels to socialize, rest, pray, and escape the oppressive sun. Travelers and caravans would stop there for respite and water. The intricate carvings and pavilions built into the walls turned the space into a place of beauty and contemplation. In this way, the Stepwell did more than just provide physical relief. It fostered community resilience, offering a shared, cool haven that strengthened social bonds during the most challenging season. Places like the stunning Rani Kai Vav in Gujarat stand as UNESCO-protected testaments to this holistic vision. It is a cathedral carved into the earth where every surface tells a story and every step downward leads to both water and welcome relief. The Stepwell represents perhaps the ultimate fusion of all the principles we have explored: thermal mass, evaporative cooling, subterranean design, and smart urban planning. It was a public utility that was also a work of art, a piece of infrastructure that doubled as a living room for an entire community. It asks us a compelling question about our own cities. Where are our modern stepwells? Where are the beautiful, multi-purpose public spaces designed not just for function, but explicitly to provide communal comfort and connection in the face of a challenging climate? Even in the harshest desert, a single tree creates a world of its own. Ancient builders recognized this living geometry, seeing plants not merely as decoration or sustenance, but as vital architectural components. They were master gardeners of the air itself, using vegetation as a dynamic, self-renewing system for climate control. This practice went far beyond planting a few date palms for fruit. It was a deliberate science of microclimate creation, where every vine and every shaded grove played a calculated role in the thermal comfort of a home or a city. The primary mechanism is beautifully straightforward. A canopy of leaves provides instant, living shade, intercepting solar radiation before it can ever strike a wall, a rooftop, or a courtyard floor. This alone can lower surface temperatures dramatically, but plants offer a second, even more powerful cooling service through a process called evapotranspiration. Think of it as a plant breathing out coolness. Through their leaves, plants release water vapor into the atmosphere. This act of transpiration, combined with evaporation from the soil around their roots, requires significant heat energy, which it draws directly from the surrounding air. A thriving, leafy tree essentially functions as a natural swamp cooler, actively chilling the breeze that passes through its branches. Ancient planners harnessed this dual effect with remarkable precision. Vines like grape or ivy were trained over wooden pergolas shading courtyards and walkways, creating living ceilings that filtered light and cooled the air beneath them. Trees were planted strategically along the southern and western walls of compounds, their canopies casting moving shadows that tracked the sun's path, protecting vulnerable surfaces from the day's worst heat. The most profound expression of this philosophy was the walled garden, the Persian paradisa, a word that gives us paradise. These were not random collections of plants, but meticulously designed ecosystems enclosed within high walls. The walls provided shelter from dust and hot winds, while inside, a symphony of shade trees, flowering shrubs, fruit-bearing vines, and often a central water channel or pool worked in concert. The evapotranspiration from this dense concentration of vegetation, combined with the shade and the evaporative cooling from water features, could create a microclimate several degrees cooler and noticeably more humid than the barren landscape just beyond the garden wall. This was biophilia engineered for survival. The cooling effect was tangible, but so was the psychological relief. The sound of rustling leaves, the scent of blooming jasmine, the dappled light on cool stone, these sensory experiences offered a profound mental respite from the monochrome intensity of the desert. This integration of living systems into the built environment represents a pinnacle of holistic thinking. It acknowledges that true comfort is not just a matter of temperature, but of atmosphere, connecting human well-being directly to the nurturing presence of the living world. In our modern cities of concrete and glass, where green space is often an afterthought, this ancient wisdom asks a quiet, powerful question. What coolness, what peace have we paved over? The movement of air was a resource to be cultivated, not just captured. Beyond the grand gesture of the windcatcher, ancient builders orchestrated the very breath of a building through subtle, brilliant design. They mastered the art of cross-ventilation, a concept that feels modern but was executed with intuitive precision thousands of years ago. The principle was elegantly simple. By placing openings on opposite walls of a room, they created a clear path for any breeze to travel straight through. This was not a passive hope for wind, it was an active invitation. A single window might allow air to enter, but without an exit, it would simply swirl and stagnate, growing warm from contact with the walls and occupants. An opening on the far wall, however, gave that air a destination. It could sweep across the space, gathering heat and humidity as it went, and carry it all away outside. This continuous flushing action was vital for more than just temperature. It removed cooking smells, reduced dampness, and maintained a sense of freshness that made enclosed spaces feel vibrant and alive, even in the stillest heat of the day. But their understanding went deeper still, touching on a fluid dynamic principle we now call the Bernoulli effect, though they knew it only through observation and experience. They realized that air, like water, moves faster when forced through a narrow space, and that differences in pressure could pull a breeze through a home. They applied this intuition by designing openings of different sizes or at different heights. A common strategy was to pair a smaller inlet vent with a larger outlet. As air entered through the smaller opening, it would naturally speed up. When it reached the larger exit, it would create a slight area of lower pressure, effectively sucking more air in behind it, accelerating the entire flow. The placement of these vents was a science of thermal layers. They consistently placed exhaust openings high on walls near the ceiling. This is where the warmest air in a room naturally pools, having risen from the floor. By providing an escape route at the very top, they allowed this heat reservoir to continuously drain away. Meanwhile, intake vents were positioned lower down, often near the floor or in shaded courtyards, to draw in the coolest, densest air available. This strategic imbalance, high out and low in, created a powerful and silent stack effect, a perpetual convection current that refreshed a room from top to bottom. This architectural choreography extended to the entire layout of a home. Doors, interior windows, and hallways were not placed at random. They were aligned with deliberate intent to create what we might call internal wind tunnels. A breeze entering a front courtyard door might be guided through a central hallway, past a series of aligned doorways into private rooms, and finally funneled out through a rear window or a rooftop vent. Every passageway became a duct, every open door a baffle directing the flow. This active management of air movement transformed a static building into a responsive organism. It ensured that no corner was left stale, that coolness was distributed, and that the gentle sigh of moving air was a constant companion. In the silence of a desert afternoon, this invisible engineering was the difference between suffocation and serenity, a testament to a philosophy that saw fresh air not as a luxury, but as a fundamental pillar of architectural dignity. High on a sun-drenched cliff face, entire cities were carved from the silence. In the canyons of the American Southwest, the ancestral Puebloans perfected an architecture of profound harmony, building not on the land, but within its very embrace. Their cliff dwellings, like those at Mesa Verde, are not just homes tucked under a rock. They are a masterclass in using a specific, unforgiving microclimate as the central feature of a passive cooling and heating system. The choice of location was the first and most critical piece of engineering. They selected deep, south-facing alcoves, sheltered by enormous, overhanging lips of sandstone. This massive natural roof was their primary climate tool. Throughout the high, fierce summer, when the sun rides almost directly overhead, that great stone canopy cast a permanent, deep shadow over the entire village below. It completely blocked the most intense solar radiation, creating a cool, shaded haven while the canyon floor baked in the heat. But then, as the seasons turned, the same geometry worked in reverse. During the low, weak light of winter, the sun's angle dropped significantly. Now, its rays could slide beneath the overhang, reaching deep into the alcove to bathe the stone walls and dwellings in precious warmth. This single, brilliant placement gave them both a natural summer awning and a winter solar heater, all without lifting a single tool. The cliff itself was more than just a backdrop. It was the thermal heart of the community. That vast, solid wall of sandstone possesses an immense thermal mass, like the thick adobe walls of a courtyard house, but on a monumental scale. The cliff face absorbed heat slowly during the day and released it gradually at night. It acted as a giant buffer against temperature extremes, smoothing out the swing between scorching days and freezing desert nights. The dwellings built against it benefited directly from this stabilizing influence. Their own construction materials amplified the effect. They used the very sandstone from the alcove, along with adobe mortar, to build their multi-story structures. These materials continued the work of the cliff, adding more thermal mass to further delay and moderate heat transfer. The design of the buildings themselves followed the same logic of efficiency seen in dense desert cities. The homes were built compactly, often stacked several stories high and tucked closely together. This minimized their total exterior surface area exposed to any residual sun or wind, reducing heat gain and loss. Narrow passages and small windows helped control airflow and light. This architecture represents a breathtaking level of observation and adaptation. The ancestral Puebloans did not just find shelter in a cave. They understood the precise solar path, the thermal properties of sandstone, and the aerodynamic flow of air through a canyon. They engineered their entire community to fit perfectly into a pre-existing environmental niche, using the landscape itself as the most powerful component of their environmental control system. It was a lesson in true sustainability, achieving profound comfort by listening to the site and working in concert with every contour of the stone. Their silent cities ask us a quiet question about our own sprawling developments. When we clear a flat lot and build from the ground up, fighting the local climate with every watt of energy, what profound wisdom do we lose by not first asking how the land itself wants to shelter us? A cool room in the desert was never just a room. It was a sanctuary, a vessel for the most important parts of life. The profound relief offered by a shaded courtyard or a subterranean chamber transcended mere physical comfort, weaving itself into the very fabric of culture, spirituality, and social order. To create a space of coolness was to create a space of meaning. In the traditional desert home, the deepest, most shaded inner room was not a storage closet. It was the heart of family life. This was where generations gathered, where stories were told, where the intimacy of daily existence unfolded away from the harsh external world. It was a place of safety and connection, its coolness fostering a quiet, reflective atmosphere conducive to both lively conversation and peaceful rest. This principle extended to the sacred duty of hospitality, offering a guest the coolest seat in the house, in the most sheltered part of the courtyard, was a profound gesture of respect and generosity. You were not just sharing shade, you were sharing a piece of your sanctuary, demonstrating your ability to provide refuge. This cultural coding elevated the architectural act into a social and spiritual one. Nowhere is this more evident than in the serene interiors of historic mosques across the Islamic world. Stepping from the blinding heat and noise of a dusty street into the vast, shaded prayer hall is a physical and psychological transition. The thick walls and high domes create a palpable quiet, a stillness amplified by the diffused light filtering through Mashrabiya screens. The temperature drop is immediate, but so is a feeling of inward focus. This cool, calm environment was deliberately engineered to facilitate spiritual contemplation, to separate the space of prayer from the distractions of the outer world. The architecture itself guides you toward a state of reflection, making the comfort of the body a gateway to the comfort of the soul. Similarly, in India, the magnificent stepwells were far more than water reservoirs. Their cool, descending terraces served as vibrant community centers. In the scorching summer months, the Baoli became a subterranean town square. People would descend its steps not just to draw water, but to meet, to talk, to have festivals, and to meditate in the profound quiet of its deepest levels. The cool air and the presence of water created an atmosphere considered spiritually pure and calming, a perfect setting for prayer or quiet thought. This fusion of utility and transcendence ensured that the knowledge of passive cooling was never lost. It was not merely a technical skill for builders, it was a cherished aspect of cultural identity and religious practice. The wisdom to shape stone and earth into comfort was seen as a blessing, a mark of a prosperous and enlightened community. Masters of these techniques were revered, their methods carefully passed from teacher to apprentice, from parent to child, embedded in songs, stories, and the very layout of ancestral homes. The cool space was therefore a living heirloom. Its preservation was the preservation of memory, of community, and of a way of life in graceful negotiation with the earth. This deep cultural investment in comfort raises a final, pivotal question for our modern world. We have mastered mechanical cooling, but in our sealed, homogenized environments, what sacred spaces, what sanctuaries of shared meaning have we inadvertently left behind? This global tapestry of innovation reveals a fascinating truth. While the core physics of convection, conduction, and evaporation were universal constants, their architectural expressions were as diverse as the cultures that dreamed them up. Each civilization looked at the same sun, felt the same dry wind, and arrived at brilliantly different conclusions, perfectly tailored to their specific patch of earth. In Persia, where steady winds swept across open plateaus, the solution reached for the sky. The tall, isolated Badgir or windcatcher stood alone like a sentinel, designed to capture those high, consistent breezes and funnel them deep into the heart of a single home or public building. It was a technology of individualism, a tower claiming a private share of the sky's coolness. Now travel to North Africa, and you find a completely opposite philosophy. Here, in the ancient medinas of cities like Fez or Marrakech, the solution was not isolation, but incredible density. The urban fabric itself was the cooling system. Streets narrowed into shaded canyons, buildings huddled together to protect each other's walls from the sun, and courtyards were tucked away like secret oases. This was communal climate control, where your neighbor's shaded wall helped keep your own home cool, and every narrow alley became a shared artery of ventilation. One culture built up, the other built close. The Berber people of Tunisia took a radically different path, choosing not to build at all in the traditional sense. Their brilliant subterranean dwellings in places like Matmata represent a philosophy of subtraction. By carving down into the earth, they used the planet's own immense thermal mass as a protective shell, creating a constant, cool interior climate by literally becoming part of the landscape. Contrast this with the grand pavilions of Mughal India, like those in Fatehpur Sikri. Here, architects pursued a strategy of elevation and openness. They built high, columned halls on platforms, maximizing exposure to any whisper of a breeze. using intricate stone jolly screens to filter sunlight and accelerate evaporative cooling, creating palaces that felt light and airy, floating above the heat. Meanwhile, across the world in the American Southwest, the ancestral Puebloans used what the land gave them. Their cliff dwellings at Mesa Verde were a masterclass in leveraging a precise microclimate. They built under vast, south-facing sandstone overhangs that blocked the high summer sun but admitted the low, warm light of winter, using the cliff's colossal thermal mass as a natural temperature stabilizer. Even the ancient Egyptians, in the Nile Valley's heat, developed their own elegant toolkit. They used high, vaulted ceilings to let hot air rise far above inhabitants, painted exteriors with light-colored plasters to reflect sunlight, and often retreated to flat, breezy rooftops to sleep during the sweltering summer nights. This comparative view is not about declaring a winner. It is about admiring a global symphony of human ingenuity. The tall Persian tower, the dense Moroccan alley, the sunken Berber courtyard, the lofty Indian pavilion, the sheltered Puebloan cliff house, and the high-ceilinged Egyptian home, each is a perfect answer to a locally specific question. The available materials, from sandstone to mud, brick to marble, shaped the form. The social structures, from nomadic families to dense urban populations, influenced the scale. The specific wind patterns, humidity levels, and solar angles dictated the strategy. What emerges is a powerful lesson for our own time. There is no single, monolithic solution to living comfortably in a challenging climate. Instead, there is a rich, ancient repository of adaptive strategies, a deep well of wisdom that teaches us to look closely at our own place, to understand its unique rhythms, and to design not just for it, but with it. The desert night holds a secret more powerful than any breeze. When the last trace of the sun vanishes and the sky turns to black velvet, a profound and silent energy exchange begins. This is the physics of radiant cooling, a process where ancient homes did not just rest, they actively harvested cold from the cosmos itself. On a clear, dry night, especially in the desert, something remarkable happens. The upper atmosphere is unimaginably cold, and with no cloud cover to act as an insulating blanket, surfaces on the Earth can radiate their stored heat directly out into the vastness of space. They do not just cool down to the temperature of the night air, they can actually become colder than the air around them. This is not magic, it is fundamental science. Every object, including a rooftop, a courtyard floor, or a pool of water, constantly emits infrared radiation, a form of invisible light that carries heat energy away. Ancient builders intuitively understood how to maximize this nightly gift. They designed flat, open rooftops made of materials with what engineers call high emissivity in the thermal infrared range. In simpler terms, they used surfaces like light-colored plaster or packed earth that were exceptionally good at releasing their heat as radiation. These rooftops were not just for storage, they became sleeping platforms. Families would ascend in the evening, spreading mats on the surface that had been actively cooling for hours. They were not just sleeping under the stars, they were sleeping on a surface that had been chilled by them, gaining direct relief from the day's lingering warmth. But the real genius was in how they captured and stored this harvested coolness, or what we might call coolth. Courtyards and any water features within them, like a central basin or a shallow pool, were deliberately exposed to the open night sky. As the deep cold of space pulled heat from these surfaces, the water would chill, sometimes significantly. This cool water, in turn, would seep its chill into the surrounding stone or earth of the courtyard floor and the building's thick walls. Think of the entire structure as a giant thermal battery. All day, it slowly charged with heat. All night, it discharged that heat skyward and simultaneously recharged with coolness drawn from the radiant exchange above. By sunrise, the building's massive thermal mass was not just neutral, it was primed with a reservoir of cold, ready to act as a heat sink for the new day's onslaught. This was a daily cycle of cosmic conversation. The home would absorb the sun's energy by day, and then by night it would whisper that energy back into the infinite cold of the universe, receiving cool serenity in return. It required no moving parts, only a clear sky, and a profound understanding of the rhythms that connect a humble mud brick wall to the depths of space itself. Yet the most tangible proof of their mastery over the elements was not just cool air, but solid ice, persisting through the fiercest desert summer. This was the domain of the Yakhchāl, an ancient Persian ice house that stands as a monument to human ingenuity in seasonal energy storage. To create ice where temperatures soar past 100 degrees seems like a paradox, but the builders of these structures understood that winter itself was a resource to be harvested and saved. The process began on the coldest, clearest nights of the year. Engineers would channel water from the ever-flowing qanat into shallow, rectangular basins just outside the Yakhchāl. The still, dry desert air and the lack of cloud cover allowed for rapid radiative cooling, the same principle that chilled nighttime rooftops. The water would freeze into thin sheets of ice, sometimes augmented by snow brought down from nearby mountains. Before the sun could rise and reclaim it, workers would harvest this precious crystalline resource, breaking it into manageable pieces. This is where the true architectural marvel took over. The harvested ice was transported into the heart of the Yakhchāl, a massive, beehive-shaped dome rising from a deep, subterranean storage pit. The structure was a masterpiece of passive thermodynamics. Its thick walls, often over 6 feet thick, were constructed from a special insulating mortar called saruj, a mixture of sand, clay, egg whites, lime, and goat hair that dried to a remarkable hardness and provided exceptional resistance to heat transfer. The iconic conical dome was not merely an aesthetic choice. Its shape minimized the surface area exposed to the sun while promoting structural stability, and its smooth exterior helped deflect solar radiation. Often, a badgir or windcatcher would rise from the very top of the dome. This was not for bringing in air, but for letting the hottest air out. As warmth inevitably seeped in or was generated by the ice itself, that hot air would rise to the very peak of the interior dome and be efficiently vented through the tower, creating a continuous stack effect that pulled cooler air from the depths of the pit upward. The storage pit itself was a work of precision. It was dug deep into the ground, leveraging the Earth's constant cool temperature, and was often lined with more insulating materials. Ingenious drainage channels at the base, sometimes connected back to the qanat, would carry away any meltwater, preventing the remaining ice from sitting in a pool and melting faster. The result was a natural deep freeze. A well-built Yakhchāl could preserve ice for months, often right through to the next winter. Communities would use this stored ice not for luxury, but for vital preservation, chilling food, cooling drinks, and even creating early forms of sorbets for medicinal and celebratory purposes. The Yakhchāl represents a breathtakingly long-term view of climate. It was a seasonal battery, capturing the deep cold of winter and releasing its cooling potential slowly across the burning summer. It required no energy input beyond the initial labor of harvest and the brilliant foresight of its design. In an age before compressors and refrigerants, it achieved the impossible, turning the desert's own nightly chill into a lasting resource. This ancient foresight asks us a quiet question about our own time. In an era of constant energy consumption, what seasonal gifts does our own climate offer that we have forgotten how to store and use? Water was the lifeblood of the desert, and its presence was engineered with a sophistication that went far beyond simple survival. Ancient planners understood that water could be a tool for shaping the very air itself, transforming it from a precious liquid into an active, architectural element for climate modulation. This was not just about having water nearby. It was about choreographing its journey through a city, a home, or a palace to create pockets of cool serenity. In some of the grandest ancient urban plans, from Mesopotamia to the heart of the Islamic world, water was integrated into the city's very skeleton. Canals were not hidden away as mere utilities. They were celebrated as central arteries, often flanked by shaded walkways and public squares. As these open channels carried water through the urban core, a continuous, gentle miracle of evaporation occurred. The dry desert air would greedily absorb moisture from the flowing surface, and with every molecule that turned to vapor, a tiny amount of heat was drawn from the surrounding atmosphere. This process, repeated across miles of waterways, could measurably lower the ambient temperature of entire city blocks. The canals did more than just cool. They created a network of cool corridors, guiding breezes that were already refreshed and moistened before they ever reached a doorway or a courtyard. This was climate control at the scale of civilization, a public works project that served the communal good by making the entire urban environment more livable. But the mastery of water was equally intimate and personal. Step into the interior courtyard of a traditional home, and you would often find its centerpiece was not a statue or a garden, but a simple, bubbling fountain. This was no mere decoration. The sight and sound of moving water provided profound psychological relief, a sensory anchor of life and calm in a harsh landscape. The gentle splashing sound masked the silence of the heat, creating an aural oasis. More tangibly, that fountain was a highly efficient evaporative cooler. The agitated surface of the water maximized its contact with the air, accelerating the cooling process and filling the shaded courtyard with a perceptibly fresher, cooler microclimate. In grander settings like royal palaces, this engineering reached an artistic zenith. Architects designed exquisite features called a salsabil, a sloping, often intricately carved marble slab over which a thin film of water would continuously flow. The water served two brilliant purposes. First, as it cascaded over the stone, it chilled the marble through evaporation, keeping its surface delightfully cool to the touch. Second, the air passing over this chilled, damp surface was itself cooled and humidified before being directed into the palace's main halls and chambers. The stone itself became a kind of heat exchanger, a passive air conditioning coil powered by gravity and evaporation. This holistic vision saw water in all its dimensions as a physical coolant, a sensory delight, and a spiritual symbol of purity and life. It was never just stored, it was put to work, flowing, falling, and evaporating in a silent, endless performance that turned architecture into a living, breathing ecosystem. The same principles that shaped desert ovens can be found in the rolling hills of southern Italy. In the sun-drenched region of Puglia, clusters of strange, conical houses rise like stone mushrooms from the earth. These are the Trulli of Alberobello, a whimsical yet profoundly intelligent architectural answer to a Mediterranean climate of hot, dry summers and chilly, damp winters. Though far from the sandy deserts we have explored, their design speaks the same fluent language of passive thermodynamics. The genius of the Trullo begins with its walls, constructed from thick, dry stacked limestone gathered directly from the surrounding fields. This local stone provides an immense thermal mass, acting as a slow, steady sponge for heat. During the long, bright Italian summer, those thick walls absorb the sun's warmth throughout the day, delaying its journey to the interior living spaces until long after the sun has set and the cool evening air has arrived. Then, in the winter, that same stored warmth radiates gently inward, taking the bite out of the cold. It is a perfect, year-round balancing act conducted by stone. But the most iconic feature, the pointed conical roof, is far more than a fairy tale silhouette. It is a masterclass in layered insulation. Typically, the roof is built in two distinct shells. First, an inner vault is constructed from wedge-shaped stones rising to a central point. Over this, builders add an outer skin of thin, flat limestone slabs. Between these two stone layers lies a secret, a narrow air gap. This trapped, still air is one of nature's best insulators, creating a formidable barrier that further slows the transfer of heat from the blazing sun outside to the calm space within. The final touch is a brilliant white lime wash that coats the entire exterior. This is not merely for aesthetics, it is a calculated reflective shield. The white surface bounces a significant portion of the solar radiation away, preventing it from ever being absorbed by the stone in the first place. Completing the design are small, strategically placed windows and a compact, circular floor plan. These features minimize the surface area exposed to the elements, reducing unwanted heat gain in summer and heat loss in winter. The Trullo of Alberobello stand as a beautiful testament to a powerful idea. The core strategies of thermal mass, reflective surfaces, intelligent insulation, and compact form are not exclusive to deserts. They are universal tools in the human toolkit for comfort, adaptable to any climate where the sun holds sway. This architectural migration of ideas shows that the wisdom born under a relentless desert sky could find a home and perfect expression under the gentler sun of the Mediterranean. The 20th century brought a powerful, seductive promise, the ability to conquer any climate. With the arrival of cheap fossil fuels and the hum of mechanical air conditioning, the ancient, patient dialogue with the environment seemed like a forgotten language. Why design a complex windcatcher when a simple window unit could blast cold air on demand? Why spend generations perfecting thermal mass when concrete and glass could rise quickly, reflecting a new, globalized aesthetic? The answer appeared to be efficiency, but of a very different kind. It was the efficiency of immediate, universal comfort, divorced from place. Cities from Phoenix to Dubai began to sprout glass towers and sprawling suburbs, architectural forms born in temperate climates but now imposed upon deserts. These buildings were not in conversation with the sun, they were at war with it, their vast glazed facades acting as solar furnaces that demanded ever more powerful, energy-hungry machines to combat the heat they themselves created. The intricate, place-specific wisdom of the courtyard, the Badgir, and the subterranean home was often dismissed as obsolete, a relic of a time before we knew better. The cost of this shift remained hidden for decades, buried in monthly utility bills and distant power plants. Comfort became a commodity, purchased with kilowatts rather than a craft, earned through intelligent design. But the pendulum is swinging back. The urgent realities of climate change and the soaring economic and environmental cost of endless energy consumption have forced a profound reckoning. We are now witnessing a great rediscovery, a return to the very principles that ancient civilizations mastered out of necessity. The modern sustainability movement is, in many ways, an archaeological dig into our own architectural past. Today's architects and engineers are not simply copying old forms. They are using advanced tools, computational fluid dynamics, and energy modeling software to analyze and quantify why these ancient strategies worked so well. They can simulate the airflow through a virtual windcatcher, measure the thermal lag in a rammed earth wall, and calculate the exact solar exposure on a courtyard at the summer solstice. This scientific validation has given birth to a new vocabulary that echoes the old. Terms like bioclimatic design, passive house, and thermal labyrinth are modern labels for a very ancient philosophy, building in harmony with local climate. We see this full circle return in inspiring new projects. In the Middle East, contemporary buildings are incorporating updated versions of the Mashrabiya, using computer-modeled parametric screens that provide shade and privacy while creating stunning patterns of light. In the American Southwest, new homes are being built with massive rammed earth walls and carefully oriented overhangs, achieving modern comfort with a fraction of the energy use. The very idea of the dense, shaded city is being revisited by urban planners seeking to mitigate the urban heat island effect. This is not nostalgia, it is a sophisticated synthesis. It is the marriage of millennia-old intuition with cutting-edge material science and engineering. We are learning that true innovation does not always mean inventing something new. Sometimes it means remembering something essential. The quiet genius of those who built with the wind, the earth, and the sun is speaking to us again, offering not just a path to cooler buildings, but a blueprint for a more resilient and thoughtful future. The principles of the termite mound have found a new home in the heart of a modern city. In Harare, Zimbabwe, the Eastgate Center stands as a living testament to the power of biomimicry, proving that some of the best engineering blueprints were written by nature millions of years ago. This office and shopping complex, designed by architect Mick Pierce, faced a critical challenge. Conventional air conditioning was prohibitively expensive and energy-intensive. The solution came not from a textbook but from the African savanna. Pierce studied the ingenious architecture of termite mounds, which maintain a remarkably stable internal temperature despite wild external swings. The insects achieve this by constructing a complex network of internal tunnels and vents. As air in the central chambers warms, it rises and escapes through chimneys at the top. This rising air draws in cooler air from lower, shaded vents at the mound's base, creating a constant, passive airflow. The Eastgate Center works on precisely this principle. Its design features a series of large, central atrium spaces that act like the mound's warm core. As the sun heats the building, the air in these atriums rises. It is then exhausted through 48 tall brick chimneys that dot the roof line. This rising column of warm air pulls in cooler night air from low-level openings around the building's perimeter. During the day, the building's massive concrete structure, its thermal mass, absorbs heat, delaying its release until the cooler evening. The entire system is managed by a simple network of fans that assist the natural flow, using only 10% of the energy a comparable, conventionally cooled building would consume. It is not a sealed box fighting the climate, but a breathing organism working with it. This brilliant adaptation shows that the ancient wisdom of passive ventilation is not just compatible with modern needs, it can be the cornerstone of revolutionary, low-carbon design. Meanwhile, rising from the sands of the Arabian desert, another vision of the future is taking shape. The Masdar Institute in Abu Dhabi is a deliberate laboratory for ancient urban wisdom. Its designers look directly to the historic cities we have explored, reimagining their logic for a new age. The campus is a dense cluster of buildings, their close proximity creating a network of deeply shaded, narrow alleyways. These pedestrian streets are intentionally oriented to capture the prevailing desert winds, funneling and accelerating the breeze just as ancient medinas did. Sprouting from the rooftops are modern reinterpretations of the traditional Badgir. These contemporary wind towers capture higher, cooler breezes and funnel them down into the public squares and walkways below, actively cooling the outdoor spaces. The buildings themselves are clad in a custom-designed screen, a high-tech cousin to the Mashrabiya. This screen provides shade and privacy while its intricate pattern is optimized through computer modeling to block the high summer sun, but allow the welcome warmth of winter sunlight to penetrate. Masdar is not a theme park of the past, it is a rigorous experiment, proving that the compact, shaded, and ventilated city model can drastically reduce energy demand even in one of the world's most challenging climates. On rooftops around the globe, a quieter revolution is also underway, one that directly mirrors the simple act of whitewashing a mud brick wall. Scientists and builders are championing the modern cool roof. These surfaces are coated with highly reflective paints, tiles, or membranes that can bounce back a significant portion of solar radiation. Where an ordinary dark roof might absorb 90% of the sun's energy, a cool roof might reflect 80% or more. This dramatically reduces heat transfer into the building below, lowering indoor temperatures and slashing the need for air conditioning. The principle is identical to the ancient use of white lime plaster, but the materials are supercharged by modern chemistry. This simple, scalable intervention has the power to cool entire cities, mitigating the urban heat island effect that makes metropolitan areas so much hotter than the surrounding countryside. Even the most fundamental material of desert architecture, Earth itself, is being reborn through digital fabrication. Pioneers are now using large-scale 3D printers to construct walls from local soil mixed with stabilizers. This process allows for the creation of complex, organic shapes that maximize structural strength and thermal performance, all with minimal waste. It is a full-circle return to Adobe, but with a digital nervous system, enabling custom designs that can be optimized for specific sites and sun paths. These modern interpretations share a common thread. They are not nostalgic copies but intelligent evolutions. They take the core principles of thermal mass, convective airflow, evaporative cooling, and solar geometry and re-express them with new tools. They demonstrate with concrete and data what ancient builders knew through intuition and experience, that the most sustainable path to comfort is not to overpower our environment, but to engage in a thoughtful, elegant dialogue with its immutable laws. This synthesis of old wisdom and new technology offers a hopeful blueprint, proving that the solutions for a sustainable future may have been waiting in the shade of a wind tower all along. A building's color was never just a choice of style. It was a precise declaration of intent, a dialogue with the sun written in pigment and texture. Ancient builders, through generations of trial and observation, mastered a simple but profound truth that modern physics calls albedo, the measure of how much light a surface reflects. They understood that the color of a wall could mean the difference between a cool sanctuary and a heat trap. Across the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and North Africa, you see this wisdom crystallized in the brilliant white lime wash that coats countless traditional homes. This was not merely for a clean, uniform look, it was a calculated thermal shield. A white or very light-colored surface can reflect up to 80% of the sun's radiant energy, bouncing it back into the atmosphere before it ever has a chance to be absorbed and converted into heat. The effect is not subtle. On a scorching summer day, a whitewashed wall could be 20, 30, even 40 degrees Fahrenheit cooler than an identical wall painted a dark color. This single, low-cost intervention dramatically reduced the thermal load on the entire structure, easing the burden on every other passive cooling system inside. But their use of color was far from uniform. It was strategic and nuanced. While sun-blasted roofs and southern-facing walls gleamed in reflective white, builders would sometimes employ darker, heat-absorbing surfaces in specific, shaded areas. A dark stone floor in a deeply shaded courtyard, for instance, might be deliberately chosen. Why would they want to absorb heat there? Because that courtyard, sheltered from direct sun all day, could become quite cool. The dark surface would actively soak up any available warmth, perhaps from indirect light or simply from the air, and then gently radiate it back as evening fell, taking the chill off the night air in that outdoor living space. This selective application shows a sophisticated understanding of thermal balance, using color not just to reject heat, but sometimes to carefully invite and store it where and when it was needed. Texture, too, became a tool in this silent engineering. A rough, uneven plaster finish does more than just look rustic. At a microscopic level, its peaks and valleys trap a thin, stable layer of still air right against the wall's surface. Because air is a poor conductor of heat, this trapped layer acts as a miniature insulating blanket, adding one more barrier between the sun's fury and the interior calm. It is the same principle behind the double-layered roof of a Trullo or the air gap in a modern insulated window, just achieved through the artisan's trowel. The interplay of color and texture across a single facade was a masterstroke of low-tech optimization. A builder might apply a smooth, bright white lime wash to a massive, south-facing wall to maximize reflection, while using a rougher, slightly darker plaster on a shaded north wall to provide a bit of insulation without worrying about solar gain. Every brushstroke and every trowel mark was part of a larger thermal equation, a way of tuning the building's skin to its specific orientation and microclimate. This was performance art in the truest sense, where aesthetics and physics were inseparable partners, and beauty was measured in degrees of comforting coolness. Deep within a winding sandstone canyon, a civilization turned a mountain into a metropolis. The Nabatean people of Petra did not construct their city from the ground up. They revealed it from the stone itself, carving temples, tombs, and dwellings directly into the rose-red cliffs. This rock-cut architecture is more than a breathtaking spectacle. It is the ultimate fusion of human ambition with the Earth's own profound capacity for climate control. By choosing to build within the living rock, the Nabateans harnessed geology as their primary environmental moderator. The principle at work is one of staggering simplicity and power, thermal mass on a monumental scale. Between the sculpted facade of a tomb like the iconic treasury and its inner chamber lies not a thin wall, but several meters of solid, dense sandstone. This immense thickness creates an almost unimaginable thermal lag. The heat from a blistering desert sun, even beating directly on the ornate facade, takes an exceedingly long time to conduct through that vast thickness of rock. By the time the day's warmth might begin to reach the interior, the sun has long since set, and the cool night air has arrived to neutralize it. The rock itself acts as a colossal buffer, smoothing the extreme temperature swings of the desert into a near-constant, gentle coolness within. But the Nabateans were not passive in their carving. They were masterful solar sculptors. They selected their sites with meticulous care. The breathtaking treasury, Al-Qasne, is not placed on an open plain. It is set deep within the narrow confines of the Sikh, a natural fissure in the mountains. This placement ensures the facade is shaded for the majority of the day, with direct sunlight only piercing the canyon for a brief, dramatic window. The same is true for the towering monastery, Ad-Dair, perched high in the hills and approached through a shaded pathway. The orientation of these facades was calculated to minimize direct solar exposure, using the canyon walls as permanent, natural sunshades. This strategic siting meant the rock itself was not subjected to the full fury of the sun, further enhancing its insulating performance. The result was a city of remarkable comfort. The rock-cut spaces remained deliciously cool during the searing summer heat, as the massive stone walls absorbed minimal warmth. Conversely, in the chilly desert winter, that same thermal mass worked in reverse. The rock, having slowly stored a residual warmth from the milder daytime sun, would gently radiate it back into the interiors during the cold nights, taking the edge off the winter air. This was climate moderation through sheer, intelligent mass and placement. Petra represents a different philosophical path from the active engineering of wind towers or water channels. Here, there are no moving parts, no captured breezes, no evaporating pools. Instead, there is a profound acceptance and amplification of the Earth's own stable nature. The Nabateans understood that true shelter could be found not by building against the elements, but by retreating into the eternal, temperate heart of the stone itself. Their legacy is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most advanced environmental design is not about adding complexity, but about listening to the quiet, steady wisdom of the planet. The quest for coolness reached its most profound expression in spaces built not for living but for transcendence. Sacred architecture across the world did not merely adopt passive cooling, it elevated it into a spiritual art form, engineering physical comfort to quiet the mind and elevate the soul. In the great mosques of the Islamic world, every architectural choice served this dual purpose. The vast columned prayer halls, often shaded by rows of arched colonnades, were designed for collective coolness. Their soaring ceilings, far above the heads of worshippers, created a crucial thermal gradient. The heat generated by hundreds of people, along with the warmth from lamps and candles, would naturally rise into these lofty vaults, pooling high up and away from the congregation below. This stratification meant the space where people knelt in prayer remained in a cooler, more comfortable stratum. The central courtyard or son, found in most traditional mosques, acted as the building's lungs. Shaded by surrounding arcades and often centered on a fountain for ablution, this open space would fill with cool night air. As the sun heated the prayer hall during the day, the warmer indoor air would rise and escape through high windows or vents, drawing this cooler courtyard air inward, creating a continuous, gentle flow that carried away heat and kept the atmosphere fresh. This was climate control for community, ensuring that the focus could remain on devotion, not discomfort. A masterful example of this principle, though originally a church, is the Hagia Sophia in Istanbul. Its architects achieved a miracle of environmental engineering with its massive central dome. The dome's crown is ringed by a series of windows. As warm air from the vast interior rises, it escapes through these high openings. This exhaust pulls in replacement air from lower levels, often from the cooler, marble-clad galleries. Furthermore, the innovative use of half-domes and semi-domes around the central space created a cascading series of vaults that helped distribute and manage both light and airflow, preventing stagnant, hot pockets from forming. The result was a cavernous space that felt breathable and serene, its air constantly in a silent, sacred circulation. In the sun-baked regions of India, Hindu temple architects pursued a similar goal of creating a cool, womb-like sanctum for the deity. They often constructed these inner chambers, the garbhagriha, with exceptionally thick stone walls, using granite or sandstone with immense thermal mass to shield the sacred space from the external heat. But one of their most ingenious innovations was the tanka, or underground water storage chamber. These were not mere cisterns for ritual use, they were integrated cooling systems. Built beneath or adjacent to the temple complex, the tanka would collect monsoon rainwater, storing it in a cool, subterranean vault. The massive stone slab covering it often had a small opening. The cool, damp air from this underground reservoir would slowly seep upward into the temple corridors and sanctums, introducing a palpable freshness. In some temples, the sanctum itself was built partially below ground level, directly leveraging the Earth's constant temperature. The drive behind these architectural marvels was far more than practical survival. It was a spiritual imperative. The discomfort of extreme heat is a distraction, pulling the mind toward the body's suffering. By mastering passive cooling, these builders removed that obstacle. They created atmospheres of palpable calm, where the air itself felt still, cool, and reverent. The gentle breeze through a colonnade, the diffused light filtering through a stone screen, the quiet coolness of a stone floor, all worked in concert to turn the physical environment into a gateway for contemplation. This sacred engineering reveals a universal truth, that the human yearning for comfort and the longing for transcendence are deeply intertwined. In shaping stone to catch a breeze or store the night's chill, they were also shaping spaces where community could gather in peace, and where the individual spirit could find a moment of respite from the world's harshness. Their legacy asks us, in our own places of gathering and reflection, what atmospheres are we building, and what states of mind do they silently encourage? A cool breeze was more than a comfort, it was the foundation of civilization itself. The mastery of passive cooling did far more than make individual homes bearable. It reshaped the very possibility of human society in the world's most challenging climates. Entire cities like Yazd in Persia or Shibam in Yemen could not have existed, let alone thrived, without these architectural innovations. They became bustling hubs of trade, culture, and learning precisely because their designers had solved the fundamental problem of heat. Caravans could stop in caravanserais cooled by windcatchers and qanat air, allowing goods and ideas to flow across vast deserts. Agriculture could be supported in arid regions as communities used their energy not for survival, but for cultivation and innovation. This was not a minor improvement in quality of life. It was the enabling condition for urban life to take root and flourish where nature seemed to forbid it. The economic implications were equally transformative. In a world where fuel, whether wood or charcoal, was often scarce and labor-intensive to gather, passive design represented a monumental saving. A family did not need to spend hours each day collecting materials to burn for warmth in winter or to power a fan in summer, because their home itself provided the moderation. The thick walls, the clever orientation, the shade of a neighbor's house, these were one-time investments that paid dividends in comfort for generations. This freed up immense amounts of human energy and material resources. Labor could be directed toward crafts, education, governance, and the arts, rather than being perpetually consumed by the basic struggle against the climate. The wealth of a city was not just measured in gold or silks, but in the collective hours of effort its citizens did not have to expend simply to stay cool. This historical reality presents a stark challenge to our modern assumptions. We have grown accustomed to the idea that comfort is a commodity, something we purchase monthly through our utility bills. We accept that living in a hot climate necessitates a high, ongoing financial and energy cost. But the ancient world shows us a different path, where comfort was architected into the environment as a public good. The most brilliant solutions were often communal. A shaded street cooled everyone who walked down it. A stepwell provided water and cool respite for an entire village. The design of a dense medina meant your neighbor's wall helped keep your own home cool, creating a network of mutual benefit. This fostered a powerful sense of shared destiny and collective responsibility. The community maintained the qanat. Everyone respected the shared shade of the alleyways, and the cool interior of a mosque or public bath was a sanctuary open to all. This stands in contrast to the often isolated, private consumption of modern air conditioning, where comfort is individualized behind closed doors, powered by remote, impersonal grids. The ancient approach suggests that intelligent design can be a great social equalizer. When coolness is derived from the geometry of a city and the physics of its materials, it becomes a resource as available as the air itself, not a service only the wealthy can afford. This is not a call to abandon modern technology, but to re-examine its role. It asks us to consider what we might build if we saw energy efficiency, not just as a way to lower bills, but as a foundational principle for creating more resilient, equitable, and socially connected communities. What resources, both human and natural, are we currently spending to achieve what a well-placed wall or a thoughtfully planted tree could provide for free? The legacy of these desert builders is a testament to the power of design, not merely to shelter us from the world, but to thoughtfully weave us back into its sustaining rhythms. The principles of desert cooling found a quiet, elegant home far from the sands in the ancient heart of Beijing. Here, the traditional sihayuan or courtyard house demonstrates that the core logic of passive design is not confined to extremes, but is a universal language of seasonal harmony. Built for a climate of biting winters and humid summers, the sihayuan creates a world of perfect moderation through its deliberate spatial poetry. The entire home is organized around a central, open-air courtyard, but this is not a space left to chance. It is a carefully calibrated buffer zone, enclosed on all four sides by the single-story wings of the house itself. These surrounding walls and buildings shield the courtyard from Beijing's notorious dusty winds and the harsh glare of the summer sun, transforming it into a private, tranquil oasis. This enclosed design immediately creates a distinct microclimate. a pocket of air that moves and breathes at a different rhythm than the bustling city outside. The architecture then performs a beautiful dance with the seasons, all dictated by the angle of the roof. The buildings feature gracefully upturned eaves that extend far out over the walls and windows. In the high summer, when the sun rides high in the sky, these deep overhangs cast a continuous band of shade, like a permanent awning, preventing direct solar radiation from ever entering the living quarters. The rooms stay cool and dim, a refuge from the stifling heat, but as autumn deepens into winter, the sun's path drops lower in the sky. Now, those same overhangs, calculated with generations of wisdom, allow the precious, low-angled winter sunlight to slide beneath them. The golden rays reach deep into the rooms, bathing the brick floors and wooden furniture in warmth, passively heating the interior spaces when it is needed most. The materials themselves, locally fired gray brick and sturdy timber, provide a moderate but effective thermal mass. They absorb the winter sun's warmth during the day and release it slowly through the cold night, while in summer, their density helps delay the penetration of heat, keeping interiors comfortable longer. The Sihayuan is a masterclass in adaptive design, proving that the goal is not constant, artificial temperature, but intelligent moderation. It shows us that the essence of passive wisdom is not about fighting a climate, but about creating a series of intelligent relationships between open and enclosed space, between solid wall and protective overhang, between the high summer sun and the low winter light. This Beijing courtyard house, though built for a different challenge, speaks the same fluent language as the desert windcatcher or the Mediterranean Trullo. It tells us that comfort in any environment begins with observing the sky and designing a thoughtful, graceful response. The timeless wisdom of these desert builders is not a relic to be admired from a distance. It is a living blueprint for our own architectural future. For the modern architect or homeowner, these ancient strategies offer a profound and urgent curriculum in sustainable design, one that begins with a fundamental shift in perspective. The first and perhaps most critical lesson is the paramount importance of site-specific design. This means moving beyond generic blueprints and truly listening to a place. It requires understanding the precise arc of the sun across the sky in summer versus winter, mapping the seasonal wind patterns, and recognizing the thermal properties of locally available materials. An architect in Arizona and one in Portugal might both be building for heat, but their solutions will look radically different because their sun angles, their prevailing breezes, and their native stone are not the same. This ancient practice of deep observation, now augmented by sophisticated solar modeling software, reminds us that true efficiency is born from harmony with local conditions, not from imposing a one-size-fits-all solution. The second lesson is written in the very walls themselves, the enduring value of thermal mass and intelligent insulation. Modern construction often favors lightweight, quick-to-assemble materials that have little capacity to store heat. The ancient world teaches us the power of density and mass. Incorporating materials like rammed earth, dense concrete, or even phase change materials that mimic this effect creates a building that can absorb heat slowly and release it later, smoothing out daily temperature swings. This must be paired with high-performance insulation, the modern equivalent of the thick, air-trapping walls of a Trullo or the Saruj mortar of a Yakhchāl. Together, they create a stable interior environment, drastically reducing the need for mechanical heating and cooling. It is about building a structure that is not just a shell, but an active thermal battery. Third, we must relearn the art of breathing buildings through natural ventilation and the stack effect. Instead of sealing a structure completely and relying on energy-intensive systems to move air, we can design for passive airflow. This means strategically placing operable windows, vents, and interior openings to create cross-ventilation, guiding breezes through living spaces. It means designing atriums, double height spaces, or solar chimneys that harness the simple physics of hot air rising to create a continuous, gentle exhaust pulling cool air in from below. This constant refreshment of air does more than cool. It improves indoor air quality and connects occupants to the natural rhythms of their environment, all without consuming a single watt. Fourth is the strategic, intelligent use of shading. The ancient builders were master sculptors of shadow, using deep overhangs, pergolas, brise soleils, and intricate screens. Today, we can design dynamic facades with parametric sunshades that adjust their angles, or employ fixed overhangs calculated to block the high summer sun while admitting the low winter light. Equally important is the return of vegetative shading, the strategic planting of deciduous trees. A tree on the south or west side of a building provides a living, cooling canopy in summer, and when it loses its leaves in winter, it allows sunlight through for warmth. This fusion of architectural and living shade is a powerful, low-tech method to combat solar heat gain. Fifth, we must rediscover water as an architectural element for microclimate cooling. This does not mean wasteful fountains in arid zones, but the thoughtful integration of water features where context allows. A reflecting pool in a shaded courtyard, a green wall with integrated irrigation, or a channel of water flowing through a public space can cool the surrounding air through evaporation. In larger urban planning, restoring natural waterways or creating constructed wetlands can help mitigate the urban heat island effect, cooling entire neighborhoods. Water, when used wisely, shapes the very air we breathe. Finally, and most importantly, is the lesson of holistic thinking. Ancient builders never saw a house as an isolated object. They considered the building, its courtyard, the adjacent structures, and the entire urban fabric as an interconnected system. A shaded street cooled every home along it. A dense urban form created its own protected microclimate. For us, this means designing at the scale of the community, not just the individual lot. It means orienting neighborhoods to maximize shade and breeze, preserving green corridors, and using light-colored, reflective materials on pavements and roofs to reduce heat absorption across a whole district. This systemic view is the key to resilience, creating places that are naturally comfortable, energy efficient, and socially vibrant. These are not outdated tricks for a bygone era. They are foundational principles for a sustainable future, offering a path to drastically reduce energy consumption, increase our resilience to power disruptions and climate extremes, and create healthier, more comfortable living environments. The question for our time is not whether we have the technology to build comfortably, but whether we have the wisdom to build wisely, once again learning to write our comfort into the very stones and shadows of our homes. A building's thick walls could soon think for themselves. This is the frontier of sustainable design, a future where the timeless wisdom of passive cooling merges seamlessly with the quiet intelligence of smart technology. We are not talking about replacing ancient principles, but about giving them a digital nervous system, allowing our structures to respond to their environment with a new kind of living precision. Picture a rammed earth wall, that ancient champion of thermal mass, but now embedded with a fine mesh of microscopic sensors. These sensors continuously monitor the wall's core temperature, its surface moisture, and the rate of heat transfer. This real-time data feeds into a building's brain, a simple, low-power computer that makes constant micro-adjustments. It knows exactly when the wall has absorbed its maximum daily heat, and precisely when to begin the nightly purge of that warmth into the cool evening sky. The building no longer just possesses thermal mass, it actively manages it with perfect timing. This intelligent conversation extends to the very air we breathe. The elegant Mashrabiya Screen, a masterpiece of shade and airflow, finds a dynamic new form. Imagine automated louvers and vents crafted from sustainable materials that cover a building's facade. Instead of being static, they are studded with light and wind sensors. On a blistering afternoon, they close into an intricate pattern, blocking solar gain while still allowing diffused light to enter. Then, as the sun sets and a cool evening breeze springs up, the entire facade subtly reconfigures. Specific vents and panels open in a calculated sequence, guided by computational fluid dynamics models, to capture that breeze and funnel it deep into the building's core with maximum efficiency. The building breathes in rhythm with the day. Even the concept of thermal storage is being supercharged. Researchers are developing advanced phase change materials, substances that absorb and release large amounts of energy as they melt and solidify at specific temperatures. Imagine these materials integrated into ceiling tiles or wall panels. During the day, as the room warms, the material melts, absorbing excess heat and keeping the space comfortable. At night, it solidifies again, releasing that stored heat or coolness as needed. It is a high-tech amplification of the water jar in the Windcatcher or the ice in the Yakhchāl, offering a much more compact and powerful form of thermal battery. On a grander scale, this fusion revolutionizes urban planning. Computational fluid dynamics software allows architects to model the wind flows around a new development with incredible accuracy before a single stone is laid. They can design next-generation wind towers or shape entire city blocks to create beneficial ventilation corridors, ensuring the passive cooling principles of dense, shaded medinas are baked into modern neighborhoods from the start. Furthermore, smart microgrids could allow these hyper-efficient buildings to communicate. A home that has harvested an excess of nighttime coolth into its thermal mass could share that capacity with a neighboring building that needs it, creating a community network of shared thermal comfort, a digital echo of the ancient communal oasis. This is not a rejection of our past, but its most respectful evolution. We are learning to build structures that don't just sit in the environment, but listen to it, learn from it, and respond in real time. The goal is a new era of ultra-efficient, resilient, and deeply sustainable architecture. It honors the profound intelligence of those who built with wind and stone, while granting us the tools to refine that dialogue for the challenges of our own century. The most sustainable building of tomorrow might not look ancient, but its quiet, efficient soul will have been forged in the desert sun 1,000 years ago. Their legacy is a whisper on the wind, etched into stone and earth. Our journey through the ingenious cooling systems of desert civilizations reveals far more than clever architecture. It uncovers a profound philosophy of survival, a testament to human ingenuity born from absolute necessity. From the wind-snatching towers of Persia to the earth-sheltered homes of Tunisia, these cultures demonstrated a timeless truth that comfort in the most extreme climates is not a fantasy, but an achievable reality. It is won through patient observation, brilliant adaptation, and a deep, respectful harmony with the forces of nature. They did not merely build shelters, they engineered sophisticated environmental machines, vast and intricate systems that operated on the cleanest, most renewable energy sources imaginable: the sun, the wind, and the steady, cool heart of the earth itself. They turned physics into poetry, creating oases of calm where logic said none should exist. Today, as we confront the pressing, global challenges of a changing climate and the sobering reality of energy scarcity, these ancient solutions speak to us with renewed urgency. They are not museum pieces, but a powerful, living blueprint. They offer a different kind of progress, one measured not in horsepower or processing speed, but in resilience, elegance, and quiet intelligence. They remind us that sometimes the most advanced technology is not the newest invention, but the wisest application of timeless principles. It is the intelligence to work with the world, not against it. This is the gift they left in the shade of their courtyards and the sigh of their wind towers, a roadmap for building a cooler, more thoughtful, and ultimately, a more resilient world for all who come after. If this journey through ancient ingenuity resonated with you, I would be so grateful if you gave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We are constantly exploring the crossroads of history, mystery, and sustainable innovation, and your support helps us dive even deeper. I am genuinely curious which of these passive cooling marvels left you the most inspired. Was it the silent intelligence of the windcatcher, the communal coolness of the stepwell, or perhaps the cosmic chill of the desert rooftop? Look around your own city or town. You might be surprised where echoes of this ancient wisdom already exist in the shaded arcade of an old building, the dense canopy of a city park, or the thick walls of a historic home. The comment section is our shared courtyard for this conversation. Please drop your thoughts, questions, and observations below. I read every single one, and the insights you all bring truly enrich our collective understanding. Together, we can keep uncovering how the brilliant solutions of our ancestors offer not just lessons, but real hope for building a more resilient and harmonious future. Thank you for your time and curiosity. Until next time, remember this: some of the most advanced technology we need is not waiting to be invented, but patiently waiting to be remembered.